Thank you both for joining us this morning and for your willingness to serve Western Colorado. Before we begin, and I know everybody's heard this a million times, we would like to go over some of the ground rules. 1, candidates should focus on ideas, not personalities. Candidates should be courteous and should not make inflammatory statements. Disrespectful or attacking speech or profane language will not be tolerated. Candidates must not display a prop of any kind. Candidates must strictly adhere to the time limits of each section of the debate. The moderator, myself, reserves the right to cut off a candidate who exceeds the time limit or redirect a candidate if their remarks are not pertinent to the elected office. Do you both agree to these rules?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Additionally, we ask that all audience members exhibit professional decorum during these debates. Limited applause is allowed, but unruly outbursts or disruptions are prohibited. And the debate moderator may penalize a candidate's time if their supporters are unable to maintain decorum. Audience members also be aware that these debates will be filmed and live streamed for public viewing. With that, we will begin with opening remarks. A coin toss was conducted backstage, and candidate McCluskie has chosen to begin opening remarks.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Julie McCluskie, and it is my great honor to serve as the state representative for House District 13 and to be the first woman to serve as speaker for the Western Slope. I want to thank Club 20, Colorado Mesa University, Mr. Williams, and the audience today for this debate. In the years since first being elected, I've seen the people of our great state demonstrate a commitment to building strong communities, sharing deep compassion for their neighbors, and emerging with resiliency after the pandemic. Our state is strong. Our economy outpaces the U.S. economy. Inflation rates are projected to be lower in 2024 than the national average at under 3%, and unemployment is falling. But even with this strength, we still face challenges around affordability, the education of our future workforce, and the impacts of climate change and drought. That's why I've carried legislation and led on policies that tackle the affordability crisis by investing hundreds of millions in state grants for affordable housing projects, a revolving loan program, and rental assistance. We've reduced property taxes, expanded tax credits for our hardworking families, lowering health insurance costs, and investing in rural healthcare access. I am proud of the fact that we've passed universal preschool and provide free full-day kindergarten for our working families. I'm also proud of the investments we've made in public education, historic investments that brought down the budget stabilization factor and will make sure that rural school districts finally get their fair share of the funding pot. I'm proud of our investments in protecting our environment, taking care of our water resources, passing first in the nation permitting program to protect our water in the great state of Colorado. Experience shows us that when we channel the Colorado spirit and work together, we can achieve lasting policy results that make for a brighter tomorrow, the Western Slope way. Please vote for me, Julie McCluskie.
Thank you. And now, candidate Williams, you have two minutes for your opening remarks.
Thank you. I am Dave Williams. I think the best advice I've had in weeks was from Clark right backstage. He said, "Man, those lights are bright. Take that sport jacket off or you're going to die, dude." So, a little bit about my background. I come out of Chaffee County. I spent 30 plus years in residential design build. I've designed approximately 200 energy efficient homes over the last 30 years. I've done somewhere from $90 to $95 million worth of economic development. I've employed people. I've made payroll. Occasionally at the end of the month, there's enough money left to pay us. Any of you here in small business, you know how that goes. I think the thing that I'm proudest of in that career is that my niche was in bringing in these young guys right out of high school and giving them a chance, seeing what they could do. I tell them, if you want to give this a try, If you spend 4 or 5 years, you'll have enough tools in your toolbox, you'll have enough of a skill set to where you can go anywhere and make a living. And we talked to them about free enterprise and how the urge, how the drive to gain value is what makes this company work. We talked to them about capitalism, how they can take their skill set anywhere. And today, I have between 25 and 30 young guys out there practicing business on their own. I think that's free enterprise at its greatest, help the next guy up, and I'm incredibly proud of that.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to move on to our question and answer portion of our debate. We will have each candidate will be asked to respond to 4 questions that have been submitted by Club 20 members and our partners. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question. The candidate that goes first on each question will also have an opportunity to offer a 30-second rebuttal to the other candidate's response for that particular question. The candidate that went first in the opening remarks will offer the first response to the first question. And that will be you, Speaker McCluskie. And the first question is, given the competitive nature of your district and the contrasting points of view of the voters, how will you approach making decisions that impact your district?
Thank you for the question. I have spoken often down at the legislature about the Western Slope way, the way many of us have shown up in the legislature, Republican or Democrat, to focus on problem solving first and partisanship second. We are about building consensus. There is honor in compromise. And I am proud that most of the legislation I have carried has either been with a Republican prime sponsor or has earned Republican votes. I believe that for policy to be lasting in this state, we must be open to diverse viewpoints, especially those that may not align with our own. District 13 is diverse. There are 3 counties that generally vote blue and 3 counties that generally vote red. I listen to my voters. That's why we've been knocking hundreds of doors since the campaign launched. I think we're over 2,000, but not sure. And in my conversations with voters, I'm hearing about the issues they care about. We're not talking about Republican or Democrat issues, but the issues of the district.
Thank you. Candidate Williams, would you like the question repeated? Or
I would, please. Yeah.
There you go. Given the competitive nature of your district and the contrasting points of view of the voters, how will you approach making decisions that impact your district?
Well, it is a diverse district. The housing in particular is something that I have a lot of insight into. I'm distressed in the fact that the cost of housing is what it is today. I think even with my design build skill set, I don't think that I could come up with a house that my grandkids will ever be able to afford again. So the housing that we see going in is either government subsidized or lien restricted. And really, what we're seeing now is either that end of it or high-end custom homes built for people that are a little bit more affluent. Yeah, it's a cause for concern because my wife and I, our biggest asset is our home. And maybe a lot of you are the same way. Somewhere down the way, we have an entire generation of Coloradans that are never going to own their own home.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to move on to question 2. And Candidate Williams, you will lead us out, followed by Speaker McCluskie, and then you will get a 30-second rebuttal at the... Actually, you're due a 30-second rebuttal. I am so sorry.
No, I'm excited to hear I get it. Thank you. I really want to lift up a point that Candidate Williams has offered, and that is housing. We do have diverse viewpoints in our district about housing issues, but I'm proud to say that we have brought over $500 million of investments in trying to lift up and build housing in our district. Those dollars now at work in Breckenridge, in Fairplay, in Chaffee County, and in Grand County. I think bipartisan support has come along the way for a lot of those investments, a lot of those ideas that we've had, and that has been essential to our success.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to move on to our second question, and this will go first to candidate Williams. Question 2. Mark Twain once said, "Whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting." As populations grow, the state becomes increasingly concerned about water scarcity and the lack of storage in Colorado. How can urban and rural communities come together rather than fighting to ensure that we have sufficient water for municipal, industrial use, and agricultural production and environmental benefit?
Well, you're right. There has been a lot of fighting, and there will undoubtedly be more. I know in my district I have half a dozen ranchers that are very good friends. As a matter of fact, we had a meeting with Terry Skinger of the Upper Ark last week over some legislation that he needs carried to make certain that the water rights are preserved. It's very difficult when over 85% of the water goes into agriculture, and all the homes are not where the agriculture is. I'm not sure what the answer there is. I know that government is always looking for a way to divert water from agriculture to the Front Range or to a more urban type development where the housing is more central. It's always going to be a problem. And as we dry up more ranch land, which is happening for a lot of different reasons, boy, it's going to be an interesting discussion. We need some really bright people around the table. I'm still learning.
Thank you. Speaker McCluskie, would you like the question reread, or are you good to go?
I'm good to go.
Very
Thank
good.
you. Water in Colorado is the romance, tradition, and spirit of the West, and there is no more important call to all of us right now than to protect our water resources. Solutions to addressing the continued drought and challenges of balancing uses include funding the Colorado Water Plan, which we have done the last 2 years through our water projects bill, $55 million this last year, $97 million the year before, and we continue to press to make sure that we are investing in our infrastructure. We have to reduce the supply-demand gap, execute stream management, healthy watershed plans, increase water storage. I'm proud to say that here on the Western Slope, we're leading by protecting in-stream flows in the Colorado River with the work on the Shoshone water right. I am proud of Amendment JJ, which will allow us to continue to keep more of our sports betting taxation in water projects, should that pass. And ultimately, I ran out of time.
Well, thank you for adhering to the time. Candidate Williams, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
Yes, I'd like to, because the ranchers that I know don't feel as rosy about the situation as what Speaker McCluskie has referenced. There are issues there. They feel the pressure every day of losing water rights, people finding new and different ways to make their water rights go away. If it were that cut and dry, it would be really, really simple. It's not. Ask any rancher you know.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. All right. We're going to move on to our third question, and we will start with Speaker McCluskie. And the third question is, the recent ballot initiative to introduce wolves has imposed extraordinary costs for both the state, private landowners, and has led to significant implications. What do you see as the legislature's role in addressing the overall implications of the release and providing support to agency staff and livestock producers?
There has probably been no more challenging issue for Grand and Jackson County in this district than the reintroduction of wolves. I have fought hard to make sure that the voices of our livestock producers and ranchers is heard with CPW and our governor's office. I have been deeply frustrated with the lack of communication, the lack of trust building that has occurred between the agency and our Middle Park stock growers, North Park stock growers. I am pleased that we continue to engage in conversation and collaborate to minimize the wolf depredation that is occurring in Grand and Jackson counties. In '23, I carried a bill with Representative Catlin to ensure there was $300,000 set aside for wolf depredation and restoration. I will continue to fight to make sure that the interests of our ranchers are protected in the years ahead with the process of wolf reintroduction.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, would you like the question reread, or are you good?
I think I would. Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
The recent ballot initiative to introduce wolves has imposed extraordinary costs for both the state and private landowners and has led to significant implications. What do you see as the legislature's role in addressing the overall implications of the release and providing support to agency staff and livestock producers?
Well, the legislature's role should have been to stand up and say, this isn't good for my counties. This was a situation here to where the progressives sided with their people in their caucus rather than their constituents in their counties. It just shouldn't have ever happened. If someone has influence, they should have been discouraged from putting that forward. And then they should have stood up and screamed at the top of their voice and said, look, this isn't good for my counties. Now, the people that Representative McCluskie referenced, Middle Park, Tim Richard, Carl Wood, these guys are all friends of mine. They don't feel like they're getting the amount of help that they ask for. Give them one thing. Give them the right to eliminate a depredating wolf. That's what they're looking for. Any circumstances. One cow, one calf, one sheep, and that wolf is gone. Give them that right, and then they'll feel like they've been taken care of.
Thank you. Speaker McCluskie, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
I want to be very clear. The voters decided to reintroduce wolves, not the members of my district. I absolutely stand up for the ranchers who have been impacted. That is why in January I asked for CPW to define chronic depredation. We are proud to say that we have asked for lethal removal of the depredating wolves of the Copper Creek Pass that have now been relocated. I will continue to fight for the ranchers of my district to ensure their livelihood is not impacted, and when it is, that they are fairly compensated for their losses.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to our fourth and final question. And Mr. Williams, you will begin this round. The Western Slope has seen an increased need for affordable housing. What steps do you feel are necessary and appropriate to ensure that the missing middle among the workforce can afford to live in our communities?
And that is the problem. As the mobile home parks have gone away and been redeveloped, they can't redevelop it at the same cost for rent that they used to have or for buying it. And that missing link in the middle is always the problem. You know, as a builder, I see what the government influence is on that. If we just reduce the government footprint. For example, I spent 9 years on the Planning Commission in Chaffee County. At that time, early on, the building codes were basically a minimum standards type document, life, health, and safety. They evolved into being a best practices, and today, those codes are absolutely nothing but a roadmap to how the progressive left wants you to live. EV chargers in every garage, please. I can put one in if somebody wants it, but we have to force them to buy that. You look at the government footprint on that and see what effect that has on it, it's enormous.
Thank you. Speaker McCluskie, it is your time.
Could you read the question
Oh,
again,
I'm sorry.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Thank
Happy
you.
to do that.
Thank you.
The West Slope has seen an increased need for affordable housing. What steps do you feel are necessary and appropriate to assure that the missing middle among the workforce can afford to live in our communities?
When we talk about the missing middle, we're talking about the core workforce of our community, our teachers, our firefighters, our local law enforcement. At even 140, 150% of AMI, those individuals cannot afford the houses that exist in our neighborhoods. I am very proud of the work that we've taken, investing $25 million this past year with CHAFA to ensure that middle-income families would have access, creating a revolving loan fund, as well as investing money through our Strong Communities grant program to build housing that is truly accessible for all in our communities, whether that's the town of Frisco, Fraser, Grand Lake, Salida, or Summit County and the Breckenridge Justice Center development. I'm particularly proud of the partnerships we've formed with groups like Habitat for Humanity, who are working with school districts to help build housing that is affordable for our teachers. I look forward to continuing that partnership with local electeds and certainly working in partnership with other people at the state around our middle-income housing dilemma.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
So what Representative McCluskie is referencing there is primarily homes that are for rent, not for people to buy. That's where we're going to be missing it. We're going to have a whole generation of Coloradans that can't afford to buy their own house. You can put enough government money, enough of your tax revenue into building, quote, affordable housing or attainable housing, but nobody owns anything. It's either deed restricted, or it's rented, or it's government subsidized. We're missing the part to where people can buy their own home and live in that home till the day that they die.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to move into the cross-examination portion of this debate. Each candidate will be given 4 minutes to ask questions of their opponent on matters pertinent to the race or office. Please be reminded that questions should be pertinent to the office you are running for and should not include any attacking speech or profane language. I reserve the right to redirect a candidate if their remarks are not pertinent to the elected office. Candidate Williams will begin the cross-examination.
Very good. Representative McCluskie, in this last session, I believe there were 7 bills that passed in relation to gun rights, Second Amendment rights. And I heard you at a forum up in Granby speaking at an end-of-year session. And I believe that your comment was that your criteria for voting for that legislation would be if you felt it makes gun safety less. I'm wondering if that's correct, and I'm wondering what basis did the Second Amendment play in this?
Thank you for the question. I am not about taking guns away from responsible gun owners. I both understand and respect the Second Amendment, but I will speak to the gun violence that we have seen in our communities across this state. Children should feel safe going to school. People should feel safe shopping at a grocery store. The action that we have taken around gun violence prevention is notable. We now make sure that there is a waiting period before a firearm can be delivered to an individual, which has had significant impact in dropping the number of suicides committed by firearm. We've increased the minimum age to purchase firearms. We have expanded the extreme risk protection order, red flag law, to make sure that teachers or mental health professionals who are aware of an individual who may harm themselves or others, that a firearm can be removed from their possession and they can be protected. I am proud that we took action in a bipartisan way to make sure that ghost guns would no longer be legal to control in this state. My goal as the representative for House District 13 and as a representative of this state is not to repeal the right to bear arms, but to make sure that people feel safe again. I've seen kids in my school district, a district I worked in for more than 12 years, battle what was going to happen next when a lockdown drill came along. I have seen kids come down to the state capitol, talk about their desire to be guns removed from the streets. They want an assault weapons ban. They ask us to take more action to keep them safe. We have a responsibility as state leaders to be sure that everyone in every community feels safe with their neighbors, feels safe in their neighborhood, feels safe in their cities. I am not opposed to gun ownership, but I will do everything I can to make sure that we stop gun violence in this state.
Mr. Williams?
So if I understand the rules right, I still have 1:20 to ask her on that?
Yes.
Okay, so when I look at what was passed there in terms of the gun laws, my wife and I are both concealed carry. All you've done is made it more inconvenient for us in terms of having to re-up that license. My grandson is state champion trap shooter. Now we're trying to increase the cost of the ammo for these kids to shoot.
Sir, is there a question in here?
Excuse me?
Is there a question?
Yeah, the question is, how is that consistent with what you just stated about as far as the gun violence? I'm just not seeing it there. It seems to me like everything is becoming more inconvenient for the legitimate gun owners and never punishing the criminals. Am I right?
I will state very clearly that the concealed carry law that we passed this year was about establishing standards for training, making sure that when a person did receive their license for a concealed carry, that they were properly informed. I will push back on convenience. I do believe that responsible gun owners understand the need for there to be appropriate regulation, safety measures in place so that we protect people from gun violence.
All right, thank you. And we're at time. So, Speaker McCluskie, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, I worked in Summit School District for more than 12 years. I'm a champion for public education. It has been my heart policy, what I work hardest at. You said in an article that children should learn in an environment free from the social indoctrination of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I have no idea what that means. I worked in schools, in classrooms. Can you give me an example of where you've seen that in a school district in our state?
If you've worked in the school system, then you have seen that because it's rampant throughout that school system. As a matter of fact,
Can you give me an example of that in a school district in our district or in our state?
Specifically, this year you passed a law that said that the teachers can actually be reprimanded if they do not call a student by their preferred name, such as a furry. Is that part of that?
The law that you're referring to made sure that every school district would have a policy in place to honor a child's identity so that they may choose the name by which they are called at school.
And isn't that identity a part of the diversity, equity, and inclusion that we're talking about?
I don't believe that is not social indoctrination, and I will assure you this came from students who are part of the Colorado Youth Advisory Council, a group that the legislature established is run by a group of legislators, Democrats, Republicans, who listen to students. Students bring forward bills asking for our help in making sure that their concerns are addressed, whether it's in school districts or otherwise. In this particular case, this was about students being able to be recognized and respected based on their identity.
Okay, and for example, in your own school district, Summit, I believe you're at, 40% English language learners there. And I understand that every teacher, every superintendent is going to do the absolute best for someone that shows up at the front door. I get that. But whenever you have kids, for example, they have in Leadville School District right now, that show up that have actually never attended school before, ever, and they're at the 6th grade level in terms of age, at the kindergarten level in terms of learning, putting that person into the middle of that classroom of 6th and 7th graders rather than teaching them independently.
You're absolutely right.
Isn't that not part of the equity and the inclusion? Isn't that part of putting them in a situation where you're setting them up to fail?
Absolutely not. I am so proud of the diversity in the school districts of our district and of this great state. There are 40% English language learners in Summit schools. We provide a dual language program so that those children can learn both in English and Spanish, and they are thriving. I am proud of the great work going on in Lake County to ensure that every child that shows up in a classroom gets the academic support they need. What our schools need more than anything else is funding. Let me go back. Yay. You stated, Mr. Williams, that personal freedom should prevail over government control. I appreciate that sentiment. I supported the Reproductive Health Equity Act that the legislature passed in 2022 at this point. And there is a ballot measure before our voters to put into the Constitution the right to an abortion. Please explain your policy position in light of your statement, personal freedom should prevail over government control.
I understand that the term abortion and personal freedom is interchangeable to the people on the left. It's not to me. I am definitely pro-life. I don't think that's a personal choice situation. I understand that we live in a state to where abortion is legal with no restriction.
Thank you.
Whatsoever.
Thank you.
I understand that.
I appreciate your response. Finally, we ran out of time. I keep doing that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Now we're going to move on to our closing remarks. Each candidate now has 2 minutes to present their closing remarks. And candidate Williams, you will go first.
Okay. This really comes down to if you feel like Representative McCluskie has done enough, and if the Democrat caucus has done enough, and if the state is moving in a direction that you're comfortable with. Are you comfortable? Are you comfortable with being in a state to where your kids, your grandkids may never have an opportunity to buy their own home? If so, let's just continue right on down the way that we are. Are you comfortable having a situation with STRs in Breckenridge to where the government can come in and literally confiscate their property rights and confiscate their ability to make a living on their rentals? Are you comfortable with all the special interest groups that seem to be running Colorado today? For example, when you're a candidate, you get all kinds of stuff in the mail. People that want you to fill it out, see who you are, possible funding opportunities. I didn't fill out any of that. I'm just I'm just kind of an old-fashioned guy. I'm a builder. Send me down to the state capitol, give me a 3-pound mini sledge, give me a cold chisel, show me that giant monolith of bureaucratic and over-regulation, and I will look for every opportunity to start chipping away at that.
Thank you. Speaker McCluskie.
Thank you. Thanks again for the conversation today, Mr. Williams, and to Club 20 and our audience. I am proud and comfortable with the work that we've accomplished these past 6 years during my time in office, tackling the cost of living crisis, driving economic opportunities in rural Colorado, and ensuring a bright future for our children, investing in our future workforce, investing in high-quality early childhood education experiences, maybe most importantly, protecting this beautiful state, fighting for forest health, conservation of our water resources, battling against wildfire and drought. This is the work I've done alongside public servants from both parties, Republicans and Democrats. One of the hallmarks of our legislature is that we find ways to reach across the aisle on important policies that impact our communities. I am proud as Speaker to have brought the Western Slope Way to that institution. I believe in listening and learning, and that's why we've knocked thousands of doors in all 6 counties in House District 13, so we can better understand the hopes and the concerns of our voters. And if we haven't yet met, I hope we do. If you're out there listening, give me a call. Being a state representative and a speaker for a rural resort and mountain community has been the honor of my lifetime. I'm a Colorado girl. I raised my kids in the mountains. I now have a dream job that I have been hired to do, and I hope I will be hired again, one more time, to be able to continue the work to address the challenges we face. We work so very hard together, Republicans and Democrats, to deliver so that everyone can live their own Colorado dream. Please bring me back to the State House so I can do that. Thank you. My name is Julie McCluskie. Vote for me, House District 13.
Okay, well, thank you. That concludes the debate for House District 13. I would like to thank the candidates, Mr. Williams and Ms. McCluskie. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys stepping up to the plate, answering questions, and your willingness to serve an elected office. I do understand how difficult that can be. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.